Hi everyone, it's Brian Peterson here. We're going to start here in a couple minutes, just waiting for a few more attendees to log in. Okay, I think we'll get started. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. If you do, a couple of things to start with. We will have, there's a question box on the right-hand side of your screen, as well as a poll box where we'll have a couple of polls throughout the presentation, and we encourage you to give some feedback there. If you do have any issues technically, by all means use the chat window and we can address those. As far as questions go, you can ask them at any point in time. We will probably hold them till the end just so we can get through this. But if there is something that we can answer during the presentation, we'll certainly look to do that. And with that, I will get started. Thank you all for joining. I know it's definitely hard to find time in your schedule to join these sorts of things, but I appreciate your attendance, and I believe you'll get great value out of joining this webinar. And really our main objective is to provide you information on that daunting task of moving from manual to automated processes and really exploring what automation should look like. A little bit about myself. My name is Brian Peterson. I'm the operations director here at Amalto. I've got a number of years of experience. I won't use 16, it makes me feel old, but really in the P2P space and O2C processes space, focusing mainly on using technology to improve financial excellence, looking at process optimization and leveraging technology solutions that ultimately save you money. And with me, we also have Joe McNally. Joe, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Sure. Hello, everyone, and thank you, Brian. As Brian stated, I'm Joe McNally, president of JMA Consulting. I've been involved in various forms of AR for more than 20 years, and I've known and worked with Amalto for, must be going on more than 5 years now. As such, they've asked me to join in on this web presentation today. I'm very excited to be here and hope to add some value to this as well. And thank you again, Brian, for the invite.
Thank you. So the agenda today, we're really going to talk about 4 different things. We've broken into 4 parts. Looking at really manual processes. What is a manual process and why do they still exist? The effort in moving from manual to automation. Looking what automation looks like in the real world. And addressing the not going it alone. And that's really understanding, that there is the option to do these sorts of things in-house, but we just want to make you aware of a few things as you try to go through the process of automating. And then, of course, we will have the Q&A section at the end. You can ask any questions you like. You can use the questions box, as I mentioned, on the right-hand side. So let's talk a little bit about manual processes. Why do they still exist, especially in this day and age when everything seems to be automated? We find namely in the accounts receivable end of things, everyone just has this comfort level of doing the things the way they're doing today, and it just seems to be the easiest way to do it. There's perceived costs associated with moving into an automated world, and sometimes it seems like the costs don't necessarily outweigh the benefits. Supplier organizations, when we look at cloud technology, that's really the new thing, and I hate to say new because it's many years old, but there still is that trust that doesn't exist with cloud-based technologies. And some organizations believe what they have in place, they already have a handle on things, and they're good the way they are. Ultimately, manual processes are not intimidating because there is that comfort level. And maybe today your customers still take paper and they claim to like paper and or standard emailed invoices, as well as dealing with paper checks. I'm sure there are still many organizations out there that are delivering checks as payment. And using that, that physical, tangible feel of paper and checks sometimes helps us make the process feel real. But really the truth behind all of that is there is that fear of moving to change. So adopting technology, there's things that we have to learn, and that is often the case why people resist moving from manual to automated processes. Transitioning is certainly not cost prohibitive when we look at, yes, there may be an initial upfront investment, but and it says here that it is more cost cost effective in the long run, but truly it is a short-term experience where you have that ROI within a matter of months. It's not years that you invest in something and then see the returns. In terms of trust, when we're trusting technology or trusting the automation of things, we look at the manual processes, and those are more filled with errors. We can leverage technology to validate and confirm information versus having an extra pair of eyes. Ultimately, when we have those paper pieces, and anytime, and I hate to say that we're not perfect, we aren't, and so any human intervention often results in errors and having to deal with those errors, which costs a lot of time. When we look at paper checks, that tangible piece of really information, checks and invoices and anything that's on paper or even email is ultimately data, and it's data that's contained within those forms of media. And so we're looking to talk about taking that physical data on a piece of paper and using it more electronically and sending it back and forth. It certainly does not make the process seem less real. In fact, you have much more visibility when you look at moving from manual to an automated process. So we have our first poll question, and we want to see what your opinion, and this really relates to the changes. In your opinion, what is important to move from a manual process to automation? Do you need a robust ERP system, and is that a hesitation? An elaborate e-invoicing system, expensive IT setup with dedicated staff, or any invoicing system? If you wouldn't mind putting your answers in, just so I can get an idea of what everyone thinks. Okay, good. So just looking at the polls, it looks like most of you believe that a robust ERP system is required to do e-invoicing. If you wouldn't mind closing that poll, Jessica. Between that and any e-invoicing system, and really the answer is, any invoicing system. We look at all the invoicing systems that are out there today, and some people are on QuickBooks or a smaller, maybe less complex system, but all of those systems today have the ability to generate electronic files. So even when you're going through a print to PDF process, let's say you're emailing those invoices or mailing those invoices, mailing those invoices, you still have a digital format of that invoice within your ERP system. And so the answer really is you don't need to go and invest in an SAP or an Oracle. Your invoicing system that exists today should really get you to the ability to automate. And so ultimately you also need, and this wasn't one of the answers, but a willingness to find a better alternative to get to automation. So moving from manual to automation, and this chart really shows two elements on why organizations do this. We look at the measurement of customer satisfaction. So when you're doing manual processes, as much as your customers may think they like paper, when you look at the higher levels of the organization, they can't wait to get rid of paper. It's a daunting process. There's no measurable way to see where the paper goes within an organization. If we could track where that paper goes on any given day, it would be certainly difficult to do so. And then the bottom factor here is the cost reduction. So as we move up in the customer satisfaction and move to the right of this chart, we are reducing costs. And the reason, and I'll show you that in the next slide, but you may have a mixture of all three of these levels. You may still have to be doing manual, physical delivery of your invoices for certain customers, email and customer portals, so you're logging into those customer portals, and you may actually have some B2B integration in place today. So when we look at costs associated with submitting an invoice, this study was done back in 2012, but the data is still very relevant and gives you an idea of where you stand with regards to your level of automation. And it's very compelling when you look at the dollars on the cost per invoice. I won't go into details on the participants or the different revenue ranges, but simply when you look at the $40 range in processing paper, and some people will argue, well, it really only cost me the cost of a stamp to send this through. But you look at all the steps in that process and the manual touches that happen with that invoice to get that invoice to your customers, plus the visibility really comes into play. The medium performer, now we've significantly dropped some of our metrics and costs. We're looking at, anywhere from $7 to $25. Looks better, but really we want to get to that top performer area where you're, $1 to $5 in costs in sending invoices. We're certainly not going to eliminate all of the costs, but reducing those costs on administrative fees is where we need to get. So let's look into a little bit further what do each of these categories mean, and I sort of touched on them, but on the manual side, you may have a lot of physical delivery of your invoices, and these are, you may be leveraging a third-party service. You might not have, processes in-house where you're stuffing and printing envelopes. You may have invested even in a machine that does it for you, but there's a cost associated with the investment of that machine as well as maintaining it as you go through. Courier services, some companies where they have large dollar amount invoices, they want to track and make sure that invoice makes it to their customer. However, once it hits your customer, there's no visibility. We don't know where it is in their payment process. We don't know that it made it to the mailroom, but where did it go from there? And is it still sitting in the mailroom? Somebody signed off on it. So there's a lot of manual intervention and little visibility to that stage in the process. Oops. So then we move to the next stage, which is electronic. And a lot of companies that we've talked to, they say, well, we do everything electronically. We're automated. We don't need to look any further. And what they're doing is sending emails out, and email invoices are certainly becoming more popular versus paper, but there's still some effort that's associated with that. You may be sending them out in batches. If you're even more sophisticated, every night you're sending out hundreds or thousands of emailed invoices. But each of those, we're finding a lot of customers are requiring even some of those invoices need to be customized. They need to make sure that you have a PO number in the subject line or an invoice number in the body and other pieces of data. So in some cases that may require you to do the manual process of creating an email. And I know it sounds funny that it's a manual using email, but or a manual process using email, but when you're composing an email, you're dragging and dropping a PDF or printing to PDF and completing it and sending it, there's time associated with that. And then in addition to that, customer portal. So we often talk to people and say, they say, oh no, I send all my invoices electronically and I use them through my customer networks. And these are networks such as Ariba, Cortex, Oildex, Tungsten, and even some customer created portals. And I'll talk about that in a minute, but some of these larger organizations will build their own AP networks and you have to log into their system, which starts to become difficult to manage because you now have to recreate that invoice into their system and log in the invoice that you've already created. Now you have to recreate in their system, follow their business rules, and also manage all of the different logins and your staff that are having to use those systems. Yes, it does provide some visibility to your invoice statuses, provided that you log into those systems to see where your invoices are at. So you may be able to see, has it been approved? Has it been rejected? You may even be notified that it might be rejected, but often cases it requires you to log in and look at those invoice statuses. And so this, each of your customers are then dealt with differently. You have this customer is an email customer, so we have to follow this process. For a portal customer, we follow this process. And so there's multiple processes that you have to manage and for each of your customers. And this becomes a bit of a task if you have turnover in your AR department where you now have to train and retrain staff on external systems that aren't even your software. So you're having to train staff on systems that are related to your customers. So while there's less manual intervention with this, there still is a manual component associated with it. And a lot of customers, as I mentioned, will think that we're automated because we're in this category. But really we want to get to the next stage, which is in that top performing category, which is where we can see those costs significantly come down. And this is B2B integration. When I say B2B integration, we are taking invoices directly from your accounting system or invoicing system. It doesn't have to be a robust system. It's a simple file export that comes out and is delivered directly to your customer. And it's delivered to your customer in the formats that they need to see that in. Now it says here ERP to ERP, but in often cases it's going into those customer networks. But it still doesn't require you to have to log into those networks to manage your invoice all the way to your customer. Because what's happening is there's validation in place that allows transforms those invoices exactly to what your customer needs. And if something's missing, the invoicing process stops. And so that quality control happens on the front end versus you having to follow that invoice all the way through to ultimately getting rejected, which could be 30 days later, and then you have to restart the process over again. So this gives you real-time visibility to allow you to manage your invoices as well as seeing all of those statuses. So the second point there, visibility to the invoice as it flows through to the approval and payment process. Again, not having to log into a certain system to find where my invoice is for this customer on this network. It's now all in one place, which is very compelling when you start looking at your key metrics, tracking things like DSO, your error or rejection rates. You know, all of this information is now in one place, and you're taking data really outside your firewall and bringing it back so that you can manage your AR department more effectively and even manage your customers more effectively. So you start to look at who is paying my bills on time, and does this customer have a large DSO because of my fault? Am I not getting my invoices to them in time? Or even looking at employee performance. Do I have certain employees that have a high rejection rate on their invoices because they're constantly putting errors in? So you start to be able to gather this data and measure your department and your costs more effectively. And with this process, there's really little to no manual intervention. You've created the invoice in your system, and it's really a click and send. You've created the invoice, you hit send, and it goes to your customer no matter what endpoint they're leveraging. So we have our second poll question, and this is really to get a feel of where the challenges lie within your organization. And does it exist around invoicing? Is that really the pain point? All those different pieces to manage, as I mentioned, email, portals. Is it related to reporting? Do you need to have more visibility? Are you having issues in your collections department? The workflow process. So as you're starting to work through issues with your customers or with the invoices, do you need something in place to manage that workflow and give more visibility to your invoices? Which also is close to the last point, reducing and eliminating exception handling. It's really that error count. Are there a lot of errors, and is that costing you a lot of time? We find most companies are spending 80% of the time dealing with those 20% error-laden invoices. Okay. So really it's a balance of collections, exception handling, and invoicing. And so we can talk a little bit about that in the next few slides here. Okay. So life as a top-performing automated organization. I'm going to hand it over to Joe here in a second, but this is really what your organization will look like as you move to that higher cost-reduced, customer-satisfied category. Typically, organizations do see a quick ROI when they do implement a project like this. And I call it a project. It's really implementing a service or a solution. And the benefits are very much so immediate. Typically, projects are within 3 to 6 months, and I'll talk about that as well later. But your ROI is not, as I mentioned, a matter of years. It's very quick, and you see those tangible results immediately. Really, the biggest factor that comes into play is reduction in the FTE effort. And I put in FTE effort because we're not looking to reduce necessarily your staff, unless your staff is entirely composed of data entry clerks, and that's all they want to do. We want to leverage that staff to now be more involved in analytics and helping your organization grow and start doing that trend reporting and really measuring those metrics so that your organization is getting better and reducing costs in what really is a cost center for your company. We normally calculate this when you look at the time spent, and if you were to do this on a day-to-day basis, spend some time with your billing team, how much time does it take to create that email invoice? How much time does it take to log into a portal? And then equating into that is invoice errors. So once that invoice has been submitted, whatever means that is, how much time is it now taking to track these errors, go through the workflow and make sure that you're getting everything right the second time so that invoice goes through. But it does add significant amount to your day sales outstanding. There is a point there. One of our customers recently that we've we've implemented a solution for, they've reduced their errors by 50%, and that was almost overnight. The other thing is minimal IT effort. So that is part of the daunting task of, okay, well, we don't know if we want to automate because our IT team is jammed as it is, and we don't necessarily have the support there. Any project like this, there is minimal IT effort, especially when looking for a third-party vendor. They should be able to manage everything outside of your firewall. It's really getting to that file export. I just need an invoice file, and we can take care of the rest of your customers. And ultimately, why are you doing this? Well, first of all, cost reduction, but it also, when you talk to anyone in your sales organization, they're looking for a competitive advantage. They want to be able to outshine their peers and bring something to the table that, you know, appeases a lot more than just that customer that's buying the product or service. And so they want to find somebody who has minimal impact to their administrative costs. And we're starting to see that this sort of thing is being included in RFQs. And if you're using portals today, that is often a requirement that you want to make sure they're putting that in your RFQ in terms and conditions that if you're going to invoice us, here's how you're going to do it. And so being able to be fully automated gives you that competitive advantage. And so I'm going to hand it off to Joe, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about his experience and examples of leveraging automation in the years that he has experience in this area.
Great. Thank you, Brian, and I'll give you a break for a few minutes. I concur with, and thank you everyone for joining the call. I concur with everything which has been presented. Automating AR can have many different meanings, and Brian, you've done a great job highlighting the difference and importance between manual and full B2B integrations. I'd like to briefly present to you my real-life experience of how Amalto can be the AR automation solution. While working with a prior company, I was part of a team trying to get our hands around everything AR, especially on the invoicing side. We were so manual and so inefficient. It was very, very challenging. Some of the challenges we faced were the company has a large and diverse customer base throughout North America, has over 250,000 customers of all sizes and industries, approximately 150,000 invoices created every month, ranging from negative dollar invoices to more than $1 million invoices. The technical capabilities of the customer base receiving the invoices spanned from no technical capabilities to very well advanced large Fortune 500 customers. At the time, they had an array of invoice delivery requirements from their customers, which included, and this falls right in line with what Brian has said, we had to do print and mail, PDF creation, and email. We had a lot of customers that required some type of spreadsheet invoicing, either daily, weekly, or monthly, which could have been consolidated monthly invoicing, customer-specific Excel macro formats, or just some form of Excel file upload. And we also had a significant amount of manual recreation of invoice data into e-billing platforms. Some of these were consumer-based portals, as Brian referenced earlier, like Ariba, Talia, OpenText, Tungsten, and many more. And some were customer-specific portals. Companies like Shell and Intel and John Deere and Anheuser-Busch all had their own hosted portals that you had to either integrate into or manually enter into. In total, there were more than 70 various portals which were required to be entered into. This was a tremendous burden. Staff to support this tripled in 4 years. Add to this the seemingly constant move by some of our larger customers from one e-billing platform to another, coupled with increased requirements when submitting an invoice, more and more data elements to be sent when submitting an invoice, and all we were really doing was adding cost to a growing problem. So this is where Amalto stepped in. We knew the ultimate best practice was to achieve less manual delivery of invoices and more automation. We just didn't know how to do it. And we had all the fears and trepidation that Brian alluded to in prior slides. We were fortunate to connect in with Amalto, who alleviated our fears and provide us a solution and pathway to move more and more of the invoice delivery to fully automated. Our full integration options included direct to a customer via EDI, XML, file transfers, full automation to third-party portals like Ariba, spreadsheet creation and uploads. And all of these invoice delivery options come from the same invoice file output that we generated for every single invoice created. So regardless of the invoice delivery method our customer required, we were able to generate a platform with Amalto where we sent them the same file information, same file structure for all invoice delivery types. It was a huge undertaking with so many customers and so many options, and it didn't happen overnight, but it's been very successful, and the results continue to be real and measurable. Good teamwork, and we had a lot of lessons learned during it, but it's been a tremendous project, and it's ongoing. Part of the problem with so many customers that we had in this company was that they're changing and they're growing and they're in flux all the time. Really wasn't the benefit of the company to keep changing and moving with them. It was better to have a company like Amalto step in and kind of be our front-facing portal ourselves, and it was a great experience. So I hope that painted a good picture and wasn't too long-winded. And as Brian mentioned earlier, I'd be glad to answer any questions at the end of this when we get to the question and answer phase.
Certainly. Thanks, Joe. So we'll lead off with another, I think this is our third and final poll question. And it really does equate to a lot of the things that Joe had asked, or spoke about rather. What is that biggest obstacle? Is it the internal support, the perceived costs associated with moving to e-invoicing? Do you not have enough time to do the proper investigation? And, what solution is best for my business? And my business is unique, so I don't think there's anything out there for me. And ultimately, is it resistance to change? You like doing the way things are and doing things the way that you are today, and you don't necessarily want to change. So take a moment and just let us know where that looks. Okay. So yeah, I think those top two answers are certainly not news to our organization, and this is something we battle as we go through our process. Internal support and resistance to change, it really depends on the audience that you're talking to, and ultimately you have to provide that compelling business case to say, here's why we need to change, and here's how much money we're actually spending on this today. And I think the most difficult part there is to actually measure where you are today, drawing that line in the sand and saying, here's where we are at $40. We want to get to $1 to $5 per invoice. And that's something we certainly can help you with, and that's part of our assessment process and delivery process. So not going it alone. As I mentioned, and as Joe mentioned, some organizations, and I would say there are a number of our customers that have gone on this, have done this themselves, and tried to manage all of their customer connections, and doing the full B2B type of project. But what we do here is, and this isn't just for us to sell ourselves, but it's really what you need to look for when you're evaluating both a vendor or planning on doing it yourself. As Joe mentioned, a fully managed solution, being able to have a vendor that will take everything away, take care of everything, and that means requiring minimal to, if at all, minor IT support. So not having a big effort put in from your IT department. UAT testing, I'm not sure how many of you have ever been involved in testing when an IT project comes in, but making sure that vendor that you choose, or if you're doing it in-house, doesn't put a big burden on your staff. Everyone has our jobs to do, and you don't need to go and hire project staff just to do testing. And understanding your customers' requirements. Making sure that there is some experience with both portals and customer changes. So that fully managed solution, as Joe said, your customers aren't going to remain static forevermore. They're going to be changing their requirements, whether it's small minor changes to mapping or changing to an entirely new system. And in this market today, we're seeing lots of mergers and acquisitions, and so smaller companies are getting bought up by the bigger companies, or there's mergers happening, which makes changes to your invoicing process, which means you need a scalable solution that can grow with your business as well. Everyone, if you talk to any C-level, they're not happy where they are today. They want to continue to grow their business, which means there's multiple complexities that come with that. As your business grows, your customer base grows, and more complex customers and processes come into play there. So you want to make sure that your vendor is adaptable to those changes, both within your organization and on the outside with your customers, which is the next point. As you go through mergers and acquisitions, you're buying companies, you create multiple business units, which can involve multiple ERP systems. So you want to be able to have somebody that can still have that central point where you can send your invoices to and handle multiple formats, handle multiple connection points, but still giving you that complete visibility to your AR as you transition and move those business units over to a single system, or keeping them separate along the way, because that's the way you want to do things. So you need to make sure that somebody is able to do that. A reporting suite, really this is the visibility component and the measurability component, making sure that when you do start a project like this, you're measuring things along the way, and having full visibility to all your different AR metrics. What does your DSO look like? What does your employee performance look like? Who am I spending the most time with my customers, or which one of my customers am I spending the most time with, or which ones are the laggards in paying my invoices? And as you evolve from an AR solution, it's really looking at that complete order to cash solution. So now that you've established these connections with your customers, you can now start exchanging other pieces of information, and I'll talk about that in a second, but it's related to the order process. I'm not sure how things work in your organization today, but when you typically receive POs or purchase orders, you either have to go and retrieve them from a system like Ariba, or you're getting an email with a PDF in your customer's format, and you have to manually enter that into your CRM system or your ERP system, and there's still that manual effort. So being able to evolve into this whole order to cash process is what we help organizations do, and you should be looking for a vendor that can do that, because it's not just accounts receivable that is the manual process when you look at order to cash. And then lastly, you look at even bank data. You're getting remittance information from your banks maybe on a daily basis. Customers have paid invoices, and in often cases you're having to manually update that. Again, that can flow through the cloud and give you more visibility to your invoices and your payment statuses. And then lastly, I'd love to say we're the only guys in town that can do this sort of thing, but you really need to look at the track record of delivery with any vendor, making sure that any references that they select for you are not just the only 3 customers they have that are happy, making sure that they are able to deliver when they say they're going to deliver. Can they deliver a large-scale project, or do you just need something small? Is it 100 connections? Is it 10 connections? And what does that look like, and what is the turnaround time? So those are the questions you need to ask, and having a realistic picture of what something like this will take. So I'll put a caveat in here. I am the operations director, but I am going to just kind of give you an intro of what Amalto does and why we put this presentation on. We do have a complete order to cash process solution where we're leveraging both logistics, field data, bank data, and invoicing. Ultimately, most of our customers are involved in the invoicing piece, but really there isn't anything that we can handle once that e-business cloud is in place. A quick snapshot of what we look like. Offices in North America, Paris and Mexico. I would love to say I've been to the Paris office, but I've yet to be invited, so hopefully that'll happen soon. We're 12 years old this year, and we were founded by IT executives that really saw the problem derived when they were on the buyer side. They worked for a large buying organization, and as they established an e-commerce solution or an AP solution, they started to hear the pain on the supplier side. This is just another solution that I have to go and learn, figure out how to put my invoices to. So they saw the opportunity there, and they've really enhanced the solution to make it easy for suppliers to not have to manage anything outside of their firewall. When you look at our volume of transactions and dollar amounts that have gone through, those metrics are really based on a combination of private cloud solutions. Each of our customers has their own private cloud, and their transactions go through that along with their customers. So it's not a big network, it's actually a private cloud solution. We claim to be one of the largest North American platforms, and the reason, integration platforms, and the reason for that is, and I'll show you in a second, the coverage of customers that we have. You see those 4 industries on the bottom, but really there isn't an industry that we specialize in or are specific to. If you're sending invoices to your customers, they have a network or they have a requirement, we can deliver your invoices however that means. And as Joe alluded to, you know, there are a breadth of customers out there. It's not just oil and gas. There's multiple endpoints that we would have to deliver to. And I would say Iron Mountain, the last point there, is probably one of our biggest success stories in the various clients that we've connected to for them, and the various markets and different requirements that we've had to follow for them. So what does an order-to-cash solution look like, or what does our e-business cloud solution look like? You know, we've talked a lot about accounts receivable. I've touched on the sales order. We look at logistics documents, so things like your advanced shipping notices or bills of lading. Any document really that you're exchanging with your customers should be able to be automated, and that's what the e-business cloud does. It requires you not to have to change your data in your system. You don't have to do development. We take your data structure, we put it in what your customers are wanting to receive. The last point there, system-to-system integration, and this is really leveraging the e-business cloud. You may have an invoicing system that gives you 90% of your invoice, but you also have to bring in information from your CRM system related to maybe a PO or even customer information. And so Amalto can actually bring those systems together and combine your invoice using multiple systems or pulling data from other systems, whether it's, you know, a well view or field ticket data, and pulling that all together. So it's really a robust cloud in that it's not just one solution that we're solving or one problem that we're solving. A quick snapshot of our customers. So all of these customers that are on here, and this is just a snapshot, this is not our entire customer base, but just highlight some of the variety of customers that we have. Obviously, you can see a lot of the service providers here on the bottom, but typically these organizations are complex. They have multiple business units. In some cases, they're moving from one ERP to another. They're going through acquisitions. They're going through mergers. And we've been able to deliver for all of these their own e-business solution. Multi-billion dollars down to the $100 million range is what our landscape looks like today. And then, as I mentioned with Iron Mountain and what Joe had mentioned, you know, it's not just oil and gas companies and service companies that we deliver invoices to. These are all recipients of invoices, and in a lot of cases, they have their own systems. They have huge IT shops that can, you know, build AP systems or create customer portals that are supplier portals that, you know, people have to log into. So very familiar with all of these. We've connected to every single logo on here, and each one of them are different. And so being able to manage that is certainly a key objective that you need to be looking at. And then let's talk about network solutions. So these are really, I'm sure you're familiar with some of these logos, if not all of them. These are those AP networks that you're required to enter your invoices into. And because we've worked with every single one of these and beyond this, we're familiar with the organization. And what that allows us to do is, A, partner up with them and work together a lot more closely. So we eliminate that need for, you know, multi-tiered support. When you're with Amalto, it's just us that you need to deal with. We go out and deal with those hubs and those customers, so that it's a lot more efficient. And because of the relationship we have with them, we can streamline the support process if anything does come up. But we are very familiar with, you know, each and every one of these solutions, and they all have different formats, different protocols. And when I say protocols, it's that language and connectivity that we need to connect to each of these. So without going into, you know, how we deliver our projects, I just wanted to give you an overview, a visual overview of what it looks like. We typically go into a phased approach, and this is what we suggest for most of our customers. We want to knock off that low-hanging fruit. So that top 80% of your volume, or, you know, maybe it's your highest revenue customer that you want to make sure you're getting automated so you have visibility to that high revenue dollar. We look to put minimal impact on your IT resources. And I've mentioned that numerous times, and this is really an important indicator or factor that you need to consider, because there are solutions out there that require a lot of development to make sure that you can get your invoices out the door and to your various customers. So we try and eliminate that as much as possible and leverage logic and transformation within the e-business cloud so that you don't have to manage anything on the IT side. And that goes to the next point, fully managed service. So we operate on everything outside your firewall, both before and after go live. And what we mean by that is your customers each have different requirements. They have different integration specifications. They have all these things that really you don't want to deal with. They don't matter to you. It's just another piece of the pie that we handle on our side. And what that means is we're going out there and contacting these networks if we haven't already. As I mentioned, some of those logos, we have well over 1,500 connections in place today. We've likely already connected to a network, if not that customer. And if we haven't, it's not going to be anything new that we haven't experienced already. And then as we move into the go live and you've got that first phase of customers connected, then we look into capturing 100% of your transactions. That's really where you want to get, is to have one process, no matter how that invoice is getting to your customer. If it's an email, if it's a portal, you just want to be able to create an invoice in your system and hit submit, and then we take care of the rest. Typically, most of our projects are a 3 to 6 month delivery, and it really depends on the scope of how many customers you want to knock off in that first phase, or maybe there's multiple phases in there, but we try to stick to that 90 to 180 day project process. So with that, I am going to open up the Q&A. If you do have any questions, I don't know if any have been submitted yet. I don't see any on there, but certainly open to any questions. If you have a question for myself, a question for Joe, and his experience that he's done both with Amalto and really moving from that process of manual or the manual process into an automated process. Feel free to, if there's anything related to Amalto or anything related to even some of those those poll questions about gaining internal support, certainly can help address those. And that is something that we found we have to help organizations with. That there's a problem in your department, but how do I sell this and how do I deliver a value proposition to the higher ups to make sure that they're willing to invest a little bit of money, because you need that compelling savings example. So I'll leave it open for a couple more minutes. I'm not sure if you're seeing any questions. Yeah.
One comment I picked up on that, it was, I think, a very important point, is you referenced purchase orders.
Yeah.
And I definitely feel that the sooner you can get to resolution of purchase order issues, the better. They're becoming more and more part of the problem of an efficient invoice delivery process. If you don't have the fully funded purchase order or the correct purchase orders on your invoices, then they're not going to be processed. And certainly that's one of the things we discovered going through our integrations and work with Amalto on coming up with better solutions for resolving those, and really quicker methodology for identifying where there is issues associated with purchase orders.
Yeah, very good question, or very good point. One question we have come in about how long does it take to get ROI on implementing a project like this? Very good question. We get that question a lot, and this is part of what we assess when we do our assessment. Typically, we find most of our customers will hit a 4 to 6 month ROI, which really goes in line with when you're going live. So that initial investment up front, you're creating, establishing all those connections, and by the time you go live, those savings are real. They're beneficial from the gate, and so you're able to really see that return very quickly. And as we implement the reporting and implement the various metrics, you can really start to see the savings, and it allows you to go back to your management team and say, see, it works. It is working, and we're live today. Another question here. So one person says, I think what you've covered is clear, but I want to confirm, are you saying that suppliers who are connected to multiple customer portals can be connected through a single interface? Yes, that is exactly what we're saying. We want, and hopefully I was clear before, but yes, there are multiple connections that you will have to make. And when I say you, that's going to be our responsibility. There's only one connection to the e-business cloud, and that's really where all of your documents, whether they're going out to your customers or coming back from your customers, it comes through that single connection. And the beauty of that is, if you were to try and do it on your own, and you know, if we want to talk later, I can show you a bit of an architecture slide. There's various formats and protocols that you need to follow when you connect to each of these networks or directly to your customer. And with that, there's some management behind it. You have to manage, you know, the security certificates that are associated with each of those connections. And so, yes, when there are multiple portals, that's exactly what we do, is we try to bring those multiple portal connections into one single connection for you. And we call it the single pipeline to the outside world, essentially. And, you know, one of the questions was, I use a smaller accounting system like QuickBooks. So am I able to do B2B connections? Yes, and that alludes to, I think, the first question we had on the poll. Do I need this robust ERP system? Do I need the ability to handle all these complex requirements that my customers are asking? No. In fact, QuickBooks has, and if you've ever taken a look, depending on the customers that you're dealing with or the networks you're dealing with, there's often plugins that you can develop directly into those accounting systems, whether they're small or robust. But the thing is, if you do decide to do those plugins, you have to realize that that is one, you know, you're going to have to manage multiple plugins going to multiple systems. And so that is, something to consider. But, you know, when you look at our customer landscape, there is quite a range of ERP systems, and the ERP systems will change. I mean, if you're a business that's in the midst of a growth, we have customers that have a process and they say, yeah, you know, we really want to do this, but we're looking at changing our ERP system from, you know, QuickBooks to Microsoft Dynamics over the next 6 to 12 months. That we have project examples today where we've actually started the project on QuickBooks or Microsoft Dynamics and moved up to a JD Edwards or an SAP and gone through that transition with them. This can all work in parallel. At the end of the day, you have to still invoice your customers. And so because you're able to plug into an e-business cloud that accepts multiple formats, we can go through that with you and do that in parallel. So one of the questions, is there an advantage to doing a project like this internally versus hiring a third party like Amalto? There may be advantages if you have a very knowledgeable IT organization. And what I mean by that, they need to understand, A, what your customers require from an integration standpoint. And I think, I don't think, Joe, you had experienced doing it on your own, and I don't think you wanted to do it on your own, but we do have multiple customers that have come to us after years of doing this. They have all the B2B connections in place, and they're throwing in the towel because of the maintenance that is associated with it. Customers are changing, as I mentioned. They're changing their networks. They're changing their requirements. They're moving to different technology solutions. And so your IT group has to be able to react and react quickly so that your invoicing process is not interrupted. So just to, I guess, finalize that question, it certainly can be done. You just need to be prepared to look at the costs associated with that. And more often than not, you're going to find that outsourcing it to an expert that is experienced in this is far greater value than trying to do it on your own.
And Brian, we did, prior to engaging with Amalto, we did try to do a few of the things on our own. And, yep. And we just weren't knowledgeable enough to make it work. So we had to move in a different direction.
Yeah, that seems to be a common story. So I'm going to leave it at that. I don't see any other questions come up. If you do have any questions, let me just go to the next slide here. You can contact myself. You can go to our website. Our website has a lot of great information where if you have any questions, you can certainly reach out to us. If there's any questions that we didn't answer today, or you just still want to talk further about maybe doing this on your own or doing it through Amalto and where we can add value. If you need help with the business case, we can certainly open up that discussion and help you through that. So I'll leave this, and I don't know if this will be available. I should have asked Jessica that. Will this be available? This will be available to all the attendees after this session, and I believe we recorded this as well. So if there are other employees that you think you need to hear this, or think need to see this presentation or hear it, by all means, this will be available to you. Thank you, everyone, for your time. I appreciate, as I mentioned, some of this might even be your lunch hour. So I hope you gained some value out of this, and look forward to talking to you. Thank you.